To create a new workbook, you need to launch Excel. If you have Excel on your taskbar, you just left click. You may have it on your desktop, in which case you would double click on it. Otherwise, you can click on Start. If Excel is something that you use quite often, you are going to see Excel listed at the top and you can just left click. Otherwise, you'll probably have to go into All Apps, and then you'll have to kind of scroll down, and you'll have to look for it under the E's, but you should see it, and then you should left click. Now, if you don't have Excel, then you are going to have to download Microsoft Office. So you're going to have to look in Moodle for the link that allows you to download Office for free. Once you have launched Excel, you're going to click on Blank Workbook. And that's going to take you right into Excel. And just a couple things about the Excel window that you should be aware of. We'll just kind of start from the top and go down. Upper left corner, we have what's called a quick access toolbar, and just a really quick way of executing commands. And by default, you have a save, undo, and redo command. You'll notice there's a little arrow here. The commands that have check marks next to them are the ones that are displayed. You can see you can actually add additional commands to the toolbar, and if the command you want to add isn't listed, you can click on More Commands. So pretty much any command that's in Excel can be added to that quick access toolbar. In the middle here, we have the name of the workbook. The default name is going to start with book followed by a number. So if you opened a couple different blank documents, you'll probably see book 1, book 2, book 3. When we actually save the file, that will change. Okay? And then there's a dash and Excel because Excel is the application we're in. Then over on the right, this would be your Microsoft user name. So it's got my name. And then we have some window manipulation buttons. Minimize basically will shrink the window down to the taskbar here. Right now, my window is maximized, which basically fills the screen. If you click on this, it'll restore the window to its original size. And typically, if I'm working on something, I do maximize the window because it just gives you more room to work in. Then I've got the X, which would actually close Excel and exit me out. And this little button is for displaying the ribbon. And it's a lot easier to work in here if the ribbon is displayed. So if you click on this, you can hide the ribbon. You can show tabs only, or you can show the tabs and commands, which is the default, and that's typically how I have the ribbon displayed. I just think it's a little easier to use when you click on tabs and you can see all the commands. Now, below you have tabs, and typically the tabs are going to display ribbons, and the ribbons contain commands. Okay, so ribbons are just really a way of organizing your commands. Now you'll notice that if I click on File, this takes me into something called Backstage View, and this is where you would go to create new documents, to save the documents, to adjust settings, to print, to export your file, that type of thing. Now you'll notice at the top of this there is an arrow because once you complete your activity, you're going to want to get back to the spreadsheet, or perhaps you accidentally came in here. So if I click, on that little arrow, it takes me right back into Excel. And by default, the home ribbon should be displayed because that contains a majority of your formatting commands. Now below the ribbon, on the left, it's showing you the active cell. Now if you look in the grid area, the active cell is the one with the darkened border. This cell is really important because wherever that cell is located, that is where data is going to be entered into the workbook. So in order to create a worksheet, you have to move the active cell around. So this little name box here is just indicating where that cell is. Now next to that, this is one of the ways, this little button here is one of the ways we can insert functions. Okay, and we have what's called a formula bar next to that. As you're entering text or numbers or calculations, which are formulas, you will see that displayed in the formula bar. The formula bar is one of the methods we can use to edit the contents of a cell. And as we're typing, what you're going to notice is that the basically enter and cancel buttons will bold because you're entering data, you're typing data. You can enter it into the cell or you can cancel. Okay, so we've got enter into the cell, we've got cancel. Got a little button here that lets us insert functions, which are basically calculations. And anything you enter is going to be displayed on a formula bar. Now, below that, we've got lots of letters. These letters identify columns. And Excel has a lot more columns than you will ever use. And if you scroll to the right, you're going to notice that once we get done with A to Z, what you're going to see is AA, AB, AC, all the way to AZ. And then it's going to start with BA, BB, BC, all the way to BZ. So I think you guys kind of get the picture. We got lots and lots of columns. On the left, we have rows. And to enter data into a cell, you're going to pick a particular column and a row. Okay? And the way you refer to cells is by the column letter followed by the row number. So right now the active cell is in A1. If I click the mouse in a different cell, okay, the cell reference now is D4. And it's showing me that up in that name box. So clicking around here is one way you can move that active cell. And we're going to learn all the different ways to move that cell. What I tend to focus on are the methods that I think are the easiest and the fastest. Okay? And clicking around is one pretty quick way of moving that cell. Now below your grid area, you have a sheet. The default name is Sheet 1. There's really not a limit to the number of sheets that you can have. Your computer system itself is going to have a limit because it's only got so much memory. But in Excel, in an Excel workbook, you certainly can have multiple sheets. And most workbooks do have more than one sheet. And you will be learning how to work with multiple sheets in this course. When you only have one sheet, these navigation buttons are going to be dimmed. If we add another sheet, and all you have to do is click on the plus sign, then you may be able to use the navigation buttons, but typically those buttons are only active if you have so many sheets that you can't see them all. Okay? And believe it or not, there are workbooks that include that many sheets. And we don't have to worry about that for a little while. But that's what they're there for. Okay? They're there so that you can navigate to worksheets that you can't see the tab for. Now below that, we have something called a status bar. And when Excel is waiting for you to do something, it is going to say ready. On the right on your status bar are the different ways that you can view the worksheet. The default is normal view. That's the view we're going to be using most often. Page layout view is useful if you want to see where the page breaks are. Okay, page break preview is also useful for that. Okay, so we've got page layout, so you can kind of see your pages here. Page layout also lets you add a header. And then page break preview tends to make your spreadsheet rather small, and it'll show you where the page breaks are. But the view we're going to be in most often is the normal view, which is the default, the very first view button. Then we've got zoom. Now this is kind of a personal preference thing. If you have trouble reading your text and numbers, you can increase the zoom. However, sometimes if you make the zoom too big and Excel cannot display the number at the size you want, Excel has been known to round decimal places, and it's also been known to put little pound signs in the cell because the text is too big now to display. So just kind of keep that in mind if you increase the zoom, which is fine. Kind of pay attention to your numbers, and you know, if the numbers appear to be rounding or you can't see the numbers, decrease the zoom, because that's just an indicator that you're trying to view the numbers at a size that is really too big. Okay, so that's kind of your Excel application window in a nutshell.